the Suwannee County Board of County Commissioners special call meeting of September 2nd, 2021 at approximately 6 p.m. If you please stand at this time for our invocation and our pledge by Commissioner Fleming.
Okay, without hesitation. Our Father, we come in your name. Thank you for all your blessings. Thank you for God, and we thank you for how you brought us here today. We pray that you be with us, help us to take care of the county business. Bless those that are here with us. You know they're able to make a way out of no way. Forgive us for all our sins and our wrongdoings, oh God, and have mercy on us. Now bless us together if we do the county business again. Father, we ask these and all blessings. In Jesus' name we pray, amen.
Amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
At this time, our first item of business this evening is approval of the extension of the local state of emergency dated August 13, 2021. Now, have any questions or comments, or do I have a motion to
Mr. Chairman, I offer motion to approve.
have a motion to approve by Commissioner Fleming?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Land. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you, gentlemen. Mr. Harris, we'll go ahead and do this additional agenda item. Is that okay?
Yes, sir.
We can go ahead and take care of that. We have one additional agenda item tonight, authorization to bid trucks and trailers for hauling solid waste. Mr. Harris.
Commissioners, I gave you a copy of those 2 pages that are attached back in, I think it was in June. And we looked at that, and then we said, well, let's go to bid, see if we can get some companies to bid the hauling. And we went to bid, and we didn't get any results. So I'm going to ask y'all to go ahead and authorize us to bid the trailers and the tractors that it's going to require to haul this waste ourselves. If you look at the bottom down there, on that second page, you'll see about a $345,000 potential savings. The numbers since that time have gone up a little bit on some of the equipment. I think maybe it's going to come down a little on some of the others, like the trailers. So I believe that at the end of the day, we can probably do this ourselves and save money. So I just need authorization to bid those 2 items.
I have any questions for Mr. Harris?
I got a couple questions.
Yes, sir. Commissioner Land.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Harris, on this here, you got 3 drivers at $18 an hour. Is that $18 an hour? What would be the all-inclusive? I mean, we got costs outside of their pay.
That includes all their benefits, too.
Everything?
Everything.
So what their net pay is going to be $17 an hour, $15 an hour?
I couldn't begin to tell you what their net's going to be. What I did was took your one of your worksheets from your budget book, an employee making $18 an hour, and I went to the total that included all the benefits and all the expenses, and that's the total that I used.
So you based it upon that?
Right.
You had another question, Commissioner Land, too?
I don't know.
I'll just tell you, if you multiply 18 times 3 times 2,080 hours, it comes to $112,320.
Yeah, I was just wondering if that $18 an hour, if that was their net, their higher pay was going to be, or if that it was all inclusive.
That's the higher rate.
Okay, so we're going to have some additional costs outside of that.
That's right.
Okay.
And that's what takes it up to the 173.
Okay. Gentlemen, I'm not opposed to bidding this. I mean, this is all kind of new in the last week or so. I'm not opposed to bidding it, but I'm not there yet on us actually hauling it. I mean, we can put it out to bid, and see what the numbers come back at, but, I think we're all still studying a lot of options on where we're gonna go with this between now and Tuesday, but, I'm okay with bidding it. I'm just gonna tell you up front that I don't know that I'm there yet on if we were to award a bid Tuesday to buy them and go into hauling it. That's just my only comment.
Well, we know what the price is. It's in that contract that we have, and it's
$27.42 a ton.
$27.42 a ton, and that's high.
I don't disagree with that. I just think that there's a couple avenues before we bite off spending, whatever this is, $936,000. to buy equipment. I'm not quite comfortable there. I think we got a couple more options that we're pursuing on where we're going to end up here with this garbage issue that we're about to talk about next. But, you know, I don't know that we need to buy this equipment, and then a year from now, we're doing something totally different, and then we're going to get out of the hauling, and we're going to do something different, and then we got all this equipment for sale, and we're going to take a hard hit on it on the resale. But I'm not saying I'm opposed to bidding it. I'm just saying I'm not there yet on pulling the trigger buying it. But I know bidding and buying is two separate things.
Right.
I'm just kind of talking ahead, looking ahead on,
Well, at least it would give us an idea, like you're saying, a more clear picture,
yeah.
instead of just guesstimating and having what we think.
Yeah.
I agree
I'm
with-
just
I
kind of
agree
throwing
with
that
you.
out there. I mean, we got a bunch of options that we're still kind of kicking around on where we're going to go here. Some of this hinges on what we talk about next, but
Yeah.
it's okay to bid it, but I'm not quite there yet on us taking over the hauling. Just because I don't know that we are 100% sure on where that destination is going to be at in 2 years or 3 years or whatnot. It's the only reason I say that. I hate to, everybody knows the guy who buys the first new truck takes the hard hit on depreciation. I don't know that I want to buy $1 million worth of equipment and potentially be selling it in 2 years. Be getting hammered. But that's just my thoughts. But I'm okay bidding it if y'all want to bid it.
I'm okay with the bid.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'd make a motion if y'all want to.
Yeah, do we need that, or is it?
And I guess when we bid this, will we get some ideas of production or delivery or?
Oh, yeah, that's the big thing right now is, I mean, if I had to guess right now, I'd say it might be a year before we have, if we were making a decision to buy it today, I think it'd be 10 months to a year, maybe on the
Delivery?
tractors, right. Trailers, you might get a little bit quicker than that, but I think the tractors might take longer, I don't know. But I do think that, we just get the numbers and bring them back and see where we are, and then make a decision.
That's good. I'm good with that.
Commissioner Land, do you have another question?
No, sir.
That was it?
That was it, yes, sir.
And you offered a motion?
I'll make a motion that we put this out to bid, see where the numbers come back at, and the
Second.
estimated delivery times.
I have a motion by Commissioner Land and a second by Commissioner White. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you, gentlemen. This time we have back to item number 2, discuss possible board action, information associated with the landfill. Mr. Harris?
Well, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, the engineer that worked on this data, I got my wrong glasses on. Sorry about that. You are here. How about that? I have to swap glasses from time to time, so I apologize for that. Let me give you a copy of this real quick. You didn't get one of these when you came in, did you? Have you got a copy of the packet, Jimmy? This one?
Already had a copy.
Okay. Oh, you got another one? Yeah. All right, so let's do this. The board talked extensively about a landfill and trying to gather information on landfills and maybe getting back into that business. In your last emergency meeting when we dealt with the LSC. So I'm going to go through this information with you, and then John can answer questions if you have any. But let me say, first of all, it's been about 14 years since the county got out of the landfill business. Now, I don't know if that was a good idea, don't know if it was a bad idea, but what I can share with you is that this county has enjoyed, without any doubt, the best disposal fees that I have seen in many, many, many years. Because the actual disposal rate that we were paying, at least since 2014 when we bid it last, was $17 a ton for disposal, and our total cost was $35 with transportation. But you're not going to find $17 a ton anywhere for disposal right now. In any event, I gave you a copy of the total rates, the new rates, and what we were paying. 2020 was $35.11 per ton for disposal. And then thereafter, you'll see all of those projected increases. If you remember, we went to bid. When we got the bid prices back, it was higher than 5527. It was a flat fee for the whole, for each year, for the 5 years. And I don't remember now exactly what that number was, but we went back and negotiated and got it lowered, so it's a tiered system so that we could try to absorb that in the earlier years. If you turn to the next page, you'll see the regional landfill rates comparison. You've got Osceola, Columbia, New River, because those are the ones that are closest to us. And you'll see where I took 1771 a ton for transportation. And that's based on that sheet that we just talked about with us doing the hauling ourselves, because in that contract with Waste Management, it's $27 and change a ton. But we put a provision in that contract that allows us to handle the hauling ourselves if we come up with a better plan. And I'm pretty confident that we can come up with something better than $27 a ton. So if you add that to these regional landfills numbers, you'll see that when you compare them to what we have with Waste Management, those numbers actually come out higher. So Waste Management's disposal numbers are lower than the other landfills. If you go to the next page, we've got the, well, we can skip over that because that's the ones that you just covered on the hauling. Go to the one that says 5-acre cell. We ran a 5-acre cell and we ran a 10-acre cell. And this took a lot of time. I'm telling you, it doesn't look like much on paper, but I'm going to tell you there was a tremendous amount of time that went into putting this together. The 5-acre cell, we put the projected 5-year lifespan and your total number of tons. You've got the backup here, but if you look at my cover page, that cover page simply gives you the summary of the information that's behind it on the 5-acre cell and the projected life of that cell. You've got an estimated construction cost of $5.2 million. I gave you the debt service on that amount of money at 5 years. And I actually contacted a lender, and you've got amortization schedules in here as well. You can take those and study those, but I gave you the debt service and the total cost with construction and the debt service over 5 years. You can see that at $5.6 million. The estimated operational expense, John had actually used numbers from Columbia County for that, for their operation over there and maintaining a landfill. And then you've got a projected number on purchase of property. And you'll notice on the land that the annual debt service there was amortized over 20 years. So that's the annual expense that you're looking at there, with a total cost over 5 years. And then you go down to the total estimated costs of the land, the landfill construction operational expense. You've got a $14,600,000 expense, and then divided that by the total number of tons, and it gives you a tipping fee, or a cost per ton, actually, of not a tipping fee, but a cost per ton of $74.16. I want you to look at that note at the bottom of that page, though. It says subject to a 10 to 20% reduction in cubic yards based on daily cover and what we decide to do with daily cover if we were to build landfill. And we list those options later in another note that we can talk about there, but there are 3 or 4 different things that can be done for daily cover that will keep that percentage of loss or reduction down low. If you then thumb through all these pages of backup and get to the one that's titled 10-acre, that's behind your tab number 4, if you've got a copy with the tabs. We did the same thing here. John explained to me that the geometry changes, and it's basically because of the slopes, and when you enlarge the footprint, you're picking up more cubic yards overhead because you're actually trying to construct for airspace. And it appeared that a 10-acre cell would last roughly 13 years. And you've got your tons on there. You've got an estimated cost. Did the same with the debt service. This debt service was programmed over 13 years to match the estimated life of the landfill. Same operational expense, same land expense. And then you go down there to your total costs, you're at $33,943,000. And when you divide that over the total tons, it comes to $53.57 a ton cost. You have all the backup for that, all the explanations of what's required to obtain a permit, a lot of information about the construction. I want to emphasize as well that John made sure that he mentioned in here that there are a lot of variables here and a lot of unknowns. One of the things that you have to do with landfills in order to get a permit is go out there and satisfy all of the DEP requirements. We'd have to go out there and establish a grid system on the ground and do some ground penetrating radar, go in and do some drillings. If there are anomalies, see what type of karst geography is out there and figure out how to mitigate some of that potentially. And there are other issues that are explained in this report, this breakdown. Behind tab 5, and Commissioners, we'll come back and take all the questions in the world that you want to ask and go through this, but I'm just trying to explain what's in your packet. Behind tab 5, there are other considerations that we need to think about. One is, if you go to tab 5, you'll see that I put subsurface remediation. If we had to go in there and grout a lot of potential sinkholes, that cost can run up pretty quickly. That $1 million isn't a real number. I just put $0 to $1 million. It's easy to do. We spent $200,000 or near that out there fixing a sinkhole under our rail spur, if you remember that recently. And then I mentioned the daily cover. There is a requirement for daily cover. Some landfills use dirt. There's a foam product. There's a combination of wood chips and dirt, and then there's a tarp system. Tarp system, if you can use that successfully, will reduce the amount of the number of cubic yards that you would lose in your landfill due to daily cover. And then there are other issues that we'd have to discuss. One would be the timing, would have to be reconciled with the current disposal contract, and just other issues. So I listed on that page, on page 5, that if you, for example, went with a 10-acre cell at 13 years, you're looking at your debt service there. And all I did was took the easy one that we discussed about the other day, and that was to postpone the modification of our collection sites and use that money toward the debt service. You can see that you've got $961,000 worth of debt service and $911,000 that's already in the budget for the modification of the collection sites if you held those off. And then I showed a more conservative number down here on the alternative transportation. That would be with us hauling, of potentially saving $250,000 a year. So that's a lot to cover in a short period of time, but I'm sure all of you have lots of questions if you want to ask those, and John is here. So, Mr. Chairman, if anyone has questions, we'll see if we can answer them.
I do.
Gentlemen, you have some questions?
Please.
Who'd like to go first?
Is that information available to the public? I mean, I didn't see anything outside.
Anybody else Want a copy of this?
Mr. Chairman, while I had her doing that, is there a way that we can post this on our website or something so we can, I mean, so the people, the masses will have availability of it versus us? Can we post a PDF or a Word document on our website?
I'm sure we can.
Is there a way to do that so that we don't have to print off 100 of these?
If they want to,
Yeah.
and look at it.
Just put it up there and let everybody know that it's there, so if anybody's got questions, because we're gonna get some phone calls about this. Is there a way to do that?
Yeah, Mandy
I'm
said,
seeing yes
Mandy
over there.
said
I
there.
just don't know if you guys agree to
I
put
agree.
it out there.
No, that's,
Yeah.
absolutely. It's, I mean, it's public information.
Save us some paper.
Welcome, sir. Just your name and address for the record.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chair, Board. My name's John Locklear. My address is actually 1926 Northwest 111th Drive in Gainesville, Florida. I'm the owner and president of Locklear & Associates, in engineering and environmental consulting firm. We've been your solid waste consultant for about 2 years now, I think, something like that. I've been in the solid waste consulting business here in North Florida for 27 years. I've worked for just about every county in one capacity or another. I've seen every size landfill and transfer station recycling. I've worked for Leon, Alachua, Hernando, and every county in between. So, like Randy said, we put this together pretty quickly. I threw in a lot of things for you to take note of that are unknowns. A lot of this is just my institutional knowledge of other places and costs that they've encountered and rules of thumb and things like that that have come with 30 years of experience in the business. But I'm here to answer any question that I reasonably can answer.
Yes. Mr. White, you had a question?
Welcome, and
Thank
thank you. I got a question on the life of the cell.
Yes, sir.
You're saying we can put roughly 170,000 cubic yards in that 5-acre cell without ramping it up with another cell?
That is correct.
Well, you're saying a ton of garbage is almost a cubic yard, I guess, is what you're using as a
We use
calculation?
1.926, which is about the best you can get. It really usually ranges from about 1.6 to 1.9. So it really depends on how good of an operator you have, how much you compact it, your dirt to waste ratio, so it's highly variable. But that, you can't really get a whole lot better than that. I haven't seen it.
You say the weight was what now per cubic yard?
Well, in my calculations, 1,926 pounds, I think it was.
Right.
Which is a real number that Hernando County, one of my clients, achieved last year. So I didn't pull it out of the air, I pulled a real number.
Well, I'm just curious because we're hauling garbage to Georgia now. We're using 100-yard trailers, so I just figured 90 yards per trailer. We're supposed to be hauling 25 tons to the load. That comes out to 3.6 tons per yard is what I'm coming up with.
Yes, I know what you're saying, but when you get it in place and you spread it out and you have to put 6 inches of dirt on it every day, you lose a lot of your ability to highly densify it. When you put it in a compacting truck, you can squish it down and you're not pushing against other garbage, you push it against a truck, and there's no dirt in there. You can squish out all the void spaces. There's no liquid, you can get rid of that. That's not how it works in a landfill. So I've never seen anything better than 2,000. I mean, a ton per cubic
Per-
yard, never
per
seen
yard.
better.
Just my question because
40, I understand what you're saying, but I've worked at over 75 different landfills, never seen better. Now, waste management, I don't work for waste management or any of the bigger ones. When you get more tonnage per day, you can get a better, because you have less dirt.
Yeah.
To waste ratio. Maybe they tip over 2,000, I don't know. But every county-run landfill I've ever seen has been less than that, so,
that's what I need to know.
okay.
Didn't you say something about something that you can spray Mr. Harris on there instead of using dirt?
I
Foam.
can speak to that if you want.
Yes.
Yeah, go ahead.
So the requirement in 62701 is the Florida statute and DEP rules from Florida statute, and one of them regulates that every day for Class 1 landfill, thou shalt put either 6 inches of fill, dirt, and it doesn't have to be any particular type, just cover the vectors, basically, keep rats and birds and smell and everything down. Or you can put a 50-50 soil mulch mixture. You basically just tumble that together and you save half your dirt. Or you can do the tarping system that Mr. Harris mentioned. Osceola landfill uses the tarp. Hernando County, my client Hernando, uses a foam product, which is one you buy from a company. It's not widely, used, but it is used, and it's pretty neat. It comes out almost like, those sealers you use to seal a crack? It kind of works like that, and then it hardens up. It still consumes space.
That's what I was wondering.
It still consumes space, but if you're dirt poor, in other words, if you don't have dirt on your site and it costs you a lot to bring in, it's cheaper to use this product than it is to haul in dirt. That's really your savings there. You don't necessarily save
I was
a
out there
ton of
for
volume.
photos,
I believe, and don't quote me, I believe because of the density of that material, they are allowed to use less than 6 inches, because the effect that DEP wants you to do is to be able to essentially seal the waste that you just put down in overnight, so that stuff can't come eat it and, take it out and blow away and this, that, and the other. So you can use, in my understanding, and I can get you a hard answer, you can use less, but there is some volume consumed by that product, no doubt.
How do you feel about the tarping system?
So the tarping system works, if you ask the employees that have to do it every day, they're going to tell you they hate it. It rips a lot, it's a pain, it snags. Yeah, you got to really be good about how you're compacting your waste and no sharp sticking up. And, so it's a lot of effort at the end of the day. When you get used to it, it works fairly well. But at the end of the week, when you're going away for the weekend, you do have to cover it. So only with 6. So instead of putting 6 inches 5 days a week, you put 6 inches on Friday and go away. So it's a 80% reduction in dirt input. So it's not fun to work with. It works. It breaks, and you have to buy a new one, and that happens. So that's an operational cost consideration. But again, if you don't have dirt, it's a cheap way to go, and it saves airspace.
How does the wind affect that tarp?
You weight it down. It's got a system that you anchor it and you try to keep it. I mean, is it
I think they use
perfect?
a lot of tires, too.
Yeah, you can use tire. I've seen them use tires. I've seen some people just use dirt around the edges. I mean,
It's pretty labor intensive.
it is. The end of the day, it takes about a half hour to roll that tarp out and get it put down. So you got to factor that into your.
How long does it last, John?
I mean, it depends on how good a job you do of making sure you don't have sharps. I've seen some of it last a day and it gets ripped. But some of it lasts a couple months. And it also depends on what thickness, what millage you get, So that's sort of that cost. Do I pay a higher cost for a thicker mill and replace it less frequently? Or do I get a thinner and just know I'm going to rip it and pay, to replace it more frequently? This sort of operational consideration.
But the advantage of that is you're saying you only have to put dirt on it once a week.
So instead of putting 6 inches of dirt over your working face 5 days a week, you do it one day. So that's roughly 80%. Depending upon, it gets complicated. Your permits will have specified limits on how big your working face can be, and that will impact how thick your lifts can be, and then that factors into your ratio of waste to dirt. So it's a pretty complicated explanation, but let's just say roughly 80% reduction in lost airspace. How about that?
And that's a lot.
Which is substantial.
That's
yeah.
a lot, yeah.
Yeah.
What would you guesstimate the size of that tarp is that they're using?
Depends on how big your working face is. So if you got a pretty small landfill, typical working face, you want to have it about 200 by 200 feet. So you can get 2 trucks in without, not dangerously close to one another at the same time.
I got you.
Right.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir?
Mr. Locklear, what are some of the different size sales that you've seen built that you've been a part of?
Okay. So generally speaking, 5 acres is about the smallest I've ever really designed or built, just because there are fixed costs associated with doing it. So you want to, as Mr. Harris was saying, geometry rules here. So we're confined by several things. We're confined by the rules which say the side slopes of the landfill cannot exceed 3 to 1. Okay? So now think about the geometry. If my base gets bigger and I got to keep these fixed, I can get a lot more volume if I make the footprint bigger. and I'm capped by height, usually by your, whatever ordinances your county has on height of any constructed building or whatever.
What's that? What's ours? Do anybody know?
If you don't have one, or, and then obviously by either you're restricted by your own ordinances on height, which some counties do, or you're constructed by geometry. If you got a footprint, it's got 3 to 1, it's going to stop at some point.
Right.
So generally speaking, to answer your question, most counties build 10-acre cells. That's what Osceola, we just designed one, we're involved in designing one for Osceola that's 14 acres. The previous 3 cells there were about 10.5 acres apiece. Winfield and Columbia County is a 10-acre cells. Each one of theirs is 10 acres. Obviously, it depends on your tonnage. You don't want to build it too big and then have to manage all the stormwater in the area that you built that you're not going to get to for 5 years. So you don't want to overbuild, and plus you're paying debt service on more than you need. So you try to find that sweet spot, and it's normally about 10 acres.
At what percent, is there a rule of thumb on what percent your production costs go down on the following 10 acres and the 30 and then the 40 and then you've got some costs of, I'm sure there's cost here with the first 10-acre site that will not be near as severe as the second one and the third and the fourth.
Agreed. There are sunk costs when you build one.
Correct.
That you won't have to necessarily eat again on the second one. Scale house, wet wells necessarily, leachate tanks if you build it big enough for the next one, things like that. Rule of thumb on how much that is, I'd just be guessing. But I will say, yes, you will, your cost per unit of volume will go down on your next cell for 2 reasons. One, what you just said, there's some costs that I can avoid or at least reduce. But now, imagine if I build one cell here and I build another one right next to it, and they're like pyramids. There's a big valley in between them, right? That didn't cost me a dime to put garbage in there.
Right.
So now my cost per garbage ton is way better.
You realize some volume at no cost.
Realize the volume, and as you get bigger and bigger and bigger, as long as you don't have any height restrictions, I can go higher and higher and higher. So the bigger my base, the higher I can go, and the more volume. So you saw when I did the 5-acre, you got 5 years of life. Then when we did 10-acre, which is only doubling the footprint, we went up to 13 years of life. So it was more than double your airspace. That's just simple geometry.
Oh yeah.
So I would say to you, I can't give you a number or a percentage. It would be highly variable by site and what you have and don't have already. But you would find that your next cell would be cheaper.
Do you know the percentage after that second sale? Do you know the percentage of gained volume between the 2 10 acres? I mean, are we talking about 5%, or are you talking about another 20% of volume?
Oh, let's just ballpark some numbers. Let's say your landfill's 200 feet high, right? And it's 10 acres, and it's a rectangular, roughly rectangular, and they're side by side. So you're almost going to get about the same amount of volume you get in one of those 10, because you basically you're inverting it.
Yeah.
And you're filling it in. So
Makes sense.
essentially, when you build that second one, you get in the third one for free. Well, free, but
So you're going to get more than 75%.
Yeah.
More than 75.
Yep. That's the beauty of it, of size, and it's also the beauty of the volume of waste that you bring in too, because you're talking about construction costs, right, that are fixed. You also have to think about operational costs. So those are kind of fixed. So I've got to have a compactor, and I've got to have an operator on that, whether I'm bringing in 10 tons or 1,000. So there's a savings per ton in operational costs as you get higher and higher. And I'll just be very blunt with you. Generally speaking, it's been my experience that about 500 tons a day is you break even for most counties. Most counties that drop below 500 run in the red. It's just my experience. Could be some out there that I'm wrong, but now could you do it if you run it real efficiently and this, that, and the other, then yeah. Comparing it to all of your other options, maybe it still is better if you're running this much in the red versus this much in the red. I don't know.
Right.
But, rule of thumb is, you you don't want to run a landfill. I mean, I wouldn't want to run one for under 400. I don't think I could make money on it.
Do you have an idea of how much Osceola's bringing in per, dumping per day? I mean, I know it's different
I
counties.
should. I want to say they're about 600 tons total, somewhere in there. They're not much over 500.
And that's several counties.
That's several
That's
counties.
4 counties together, yeah.
What about New River?
Oh, well.
Is that your customer too?
No, but I've been in this 27 years, so for 12 years, I worked for another consulting firm that did do New River, so I was there. The 3 member counties only bring in about 200 tons a day, right? So they would run way in the red on that, except they have Alachua County, Gilchrist County, and Lafayette County as customers paying $52.50 a ton to come to their landfill. So in that case, the host county pays about, don't quote me, I might be wrong, pays under $10 a ton because they're being basically subsidized by a customer.
Right.
Whereas Osceola doesn't do that model. They only accept member waste. New River chose to accept customers.
At 500 tons a day, 365 days, that's 182,000 tons a year.
Yeah, but you don't do 352.
You don't do 365.
365. Yeah, you do what?
100.
250 or two.
So,
I don't know how many collection days y'all have. Whatever.
so 225.
Yeah, somewhere in that range.
That's 112,500, and we're at 35,000 tons roughly. That's annual, and we're at 35 annual.
So if you looked at it in a vacuum, right, ignoring what you're paying and where it's going now, and you just asked me point blank, should I build a landfill and take care of my own garbage? I'd say, I don't think that's a good idea, guys. Just my personal and professional opinion. You don't have enough waste. You had partners, maybe. If you did like New River and had it and brought in customers, but again, that's complicated. Do your constituents want other people's garbage coming in? That's a big question. B, are they already locked in? All your neighbors already locked in for long-term deals somewhere else? A lot of questions. So, and then, you certainly don't want to do a multi-million-dollar investment without guaranteed waste flow. So, lot to consider. This is a big topic y'all are asking me about, a big one.
I appreciate your honesty, because if you'd have said, yeah, y'all need to build one, then I knew you were doing a sales job.
No.
Yeah.
No, I do not want to build you a landfill. That doesn't work.
John and I actually had this very conversation before because of the low volume. And your volume, your average is about 147, 150 tons a day on average. So that's pretty low.
It's just, in my opinion, and I haven't done a full analysis, we did this, in a week? That's just too low. You can't do it. You can't economically do it. How about that? If you want to do it and lose money and that option's still better than hauling and disposing somewhere, maybe, I don't know. But
Well, I think the only unknown, today it's a bad deal, but the only unknown is the 5th year, the 10th year.
That's right.
well, right,
Exactly right.
that is one of the advantages.
Then
You
you
do
start
control
getting
your
to the number
fate.
like, wait a minute, now we're
Yeah.
in the black, because
Yeah, if you-
not in the red anymore.
If it was me, if I was in your shoes, you're making a multi-million-dollar, multi-generational decision in effect. And I'm not, it's going to sound self-serving because you'd probably turn to me to do it, but I'd want to do a 20-year analysis of costs of all my options and actually get hard data. So in the report that I gave you, some questions I had that Mr. Harris brought up, well, what's the geology look like? That's a big question. How much dirt do you have on site? How long will it last? And if it runs out, where's your nearest dirt and how much will that cost? There's a big operational questions. What condition is all of your equipment in right now? And how much would it cost to get a new compactor and put that out over 20 years? How long is that going to last? When do I have to replace it? You got to have closure escrow funds. So before you put a drop of garbage into the landfill, DEP has already required us to map out how long it's going to last and what it would cost to close it up. We got to put a cover and, 2 foot of dirt and all this stuff, and you got to start putting that money in the bank day one. So there's just a lot, it's a very complex economic decision, quite frankly. And I wouldn't feel comfortable just making it,
Oh, yeah.
you see what I'm saying? It's complex, and then you get into the complexities of hauling it yourself, taking it somewhere else, getting into partnerships, becoming a customer, becoming a client with customers. I mean, that's a lot of questions, a lot of moving parts and variables.
The only problem we have is we're at the mercy of someone and we don't control our own destiny.
Well, that is true, and
And
that's
the
why.
problem is,
Yep.
us five aren't, well, we are too, but this community is at the mercy of someone.
Yep.
And that, at the end of the day, is worth a lot of money to me,
I
to control my own destiny. Now, does it need to make sense, and do we need to figure out how to get there, and will the people have to understand that we have to take outside garbage to offset the building costs? I mean, all those things need to be talked about, but we're getting mistreated. And I tell you what, I'm sick to my stomach about it, and so is this community. And like you said, there's no good answers, and the problem is we don't have any good answers for everyone, because this is the hand that we're dealt, and we're trying to work through it the best we can, and there's no good answer. It doesn't matter which way you turn, it's about a lot of money.
I wish I could tell you differently, but you're right. Every option that you pursue is going to be relatively expensive, and it comes down to this board and your constituents' opinions on whether you want to control your own fate, whether you want to bring in garbage, don't want to bring in garbage, you want to stay at the mercy of somebody else. I mean, that's all just decisions that I can't really help you with, unfortunately.
Yes, sir.
I
Mr.
think
Fleming.
you pretty much answered my question. I want to ask you, what would be your opinion? And you just gave it. And I appreciate your honesty,
Yes, sir.
but at the same time, like I said, there's not a good answer to what we're looking for, and that doesn't make it any better. It's
My response to that, sir, would be, if you were asking me what to do at this point, this is good information that you have here in front of you. It's pretty rough, pretty quick, pretty rudimentary. I would look at, as I mentioned, 20-year financial analysis of every option that you have, put pros and cons, and maybe have a community workshop, let a community involvement, what are their thoughts on it? Because there are going to be intangible pros and cons that I can't monetize, Some people are going to not want outside waste. Some people are going to be, hey, I don't want my taxes to go up, bring it in. That's why I can't answer the question. It's sort of, what is the will of the community? And I don't know. I'm not sure if you even know yet.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
So hearing what you're saying, I mean, obviously, we don't want to rush into anything.
Right.
But we cannot be the only county that's starting to feel this effect. I mean, there's got to be other counties in the next year, 2, 3, 4, that maybe, again, I think we continue to look at this, figure it out, but start working on partnering with some other counties. I mean, again, we can't be the only ones that's been handcuffed, or going to be. But it comes to what you said, we need to decide, does the community want to hear
Right.
first, which I think they would. I mean, we've had it before, and I don't think that would be an issue, but I don't know. So many variables here, like you say.
There
So many
are
unknowns.
A lot, yeah.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
Go ahead.
Mr. Harris.
Oh, okay.
One thing-
I want to go back to a construction question for
Yes,
a
sir.
moment. What I'm familiar with is, and I'm not an engineer, I'm just, was very observant when I've dealt with this once before. We master planned those, in this case, 10-acre cells as a footprint contiguous to one another over time. So there were 4 of them that created that geometry. But
Yep.
my question then goes back to the question of daily cover. Is DEP requiring you to go ahead and close a 10-acre cell and put the 2 foot of cover, or can you cover it with something less than that if you plan to do the contiguous footprints and go up?
So the rules allow you to do what's called intermediate closure. So let's say you go to an area that you're going to come back on top of later, but it's going to be sort of dormant for a number of years. You put what's called intermediate cover, which is 12 inches of soil, which you then can remove
Okay.
when you come back on
That's like
top of
filling in the
garbage.
V, when you come back to fill in the V.
Sure.
Between the two, you're
Yep.
saying.
Or even if let's say I build first cell, and I'm filling in my second cell before I even get to my V, I can't just have this sitting here for 5 years.
Right.
If it exceeds 180 days, which is what the rule says, that I'm not putting garbage here, I got to put a foot of dirt on it and maintain that foot of dirt.
You can't use the foam there.
Well, I mean, I guess you could, yeah, but the only thing with the foam is I can't come back, it's not easy to scrape that back off. So in that case, I'd recommend dirt. Because I can get that and recover it and reuse it too.
Yeah.
Another question, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
I know that decomposition is really important because it helps as well compact,
Yep.
creates more density if you can accelerate your decomposition. I know there's some landfills who cycle their leachate back up, run sprinklers, and let it run back through because that moisture helps accelerate the decomposition and the compaction as
New
well.
River is one of them, it's called leachate recirculation. It does help. There are a slew of studies on how much it speeds up the decomposition process, because what happens is the conventional landfill does not do that. It's what's called a dry tomb. So we close it up, all the liquid goes to the bottom, we suck it out, and it's dry inside. And it's now when we close it, there's no oxygen. So it's anaerobic bacteria that do the breakdowns. Well, anaerobic bacteria need water to work. They don't work without it. So you can go dig into an old landfill and find a newspaper from 1935 and still read it. I've seen it. So you're right, you can speed it up. The question that I have, and I don't know that the study has come out about this yet, is how much of it is recoverable? So in order to recirculate it, it gets very wet, obviously, and it stays very wet. How workable is it to get back up on top of it? I don't know the answer to that. I don't know that, and I could be wrong, I don't know that New River has actually opened up what they call it a bioreactor landfill, where they've been recirculating the leachate in there. And you can clearly see it's getting smaller and smaller and smaller, the hill. But I don't know that they've unzipped it, and they don't use dirt, they have a exposed geomembrane cover, unzipped it and gone back up on top. So I can't really give you a number, Mr. Harris.
Are they waiting until the end to recycle leachate, or they do
Well,
it
they're building
while
a new
they're in
cell right
operation?
now, so I don't know why they wouldn't have gone back.
Well, the
Maybe it's
question really I was trying to work back to the foam question. Is
Yeah.
this foam not permeable where that
It
liquid
is,
can
so-
come
it
down
is
through
somewhat permeable, so you can recirculate leachate with that, yeah.
Okay.
Would you want to? I don't know enough right now to answer that question, because the problem that I have seen with some landfills, Leon County's landfill, when they closed in 2002, but prior to that, they were dirt poor except for clay. So their daily cover was clay. So now you can imagine you've got a layer cake of impermeable clay, and when leachate comes down through it, where does it go? Right out the side.
That's right.
And that's a big problem. So the vertical permeability of that foam versus the horizontal permeability of the waste above it, I don't know the ratio. So I don't know. I'd have to ask I don't think Hernando recirculates. They do have the permit ability to, but I don't know if they do it. Because they have a sweetheart deal to get rid of the leachate. That's another reason why landfills recirculate leachate, is to kind of put off the disposal cost of it. So I can basically, if I'm pumping out, and I got to send it to a wastewater plant to get treated, which you do, instead of doing that, I'm just going to put it back into the landfill. Now, eventually, I got to pay the piper, and it's going to fill up, only hold so much, but it delays my cost. So that a lot of times you'll see that's why landfills do that, more so than the decomposition increase.
Okay.
Hopefully that answers your question.
No, it does.
Commissioner Land.
I got a couple things. Number one, Mr. Harris, have you spoke to Osceola and Columbia and New River, and these are the rates that they provided you?
Yeah, this was back
Page
whenever
2.
it was, 2 or 3 months ago, when I called them and got numbers from them at the time.
This is what that's what they quoted us.
Back then.
Yeah.
Now, let me say this, though. I'm of the opinion that we should try to schedule a meeting and go before their boards. And I think that it's possible that they might entertain us as a customer, but more importantly, maybe offer us a better rate than their published rates, if we do that, but we just need to get an audience in front of them in order to do that.
If I could, Mr. Chair, I'd say that's probably where I'd start.
Mr. Chairman, just to elaborate on that, I think Mr. Harris knows this, I have reached out to some of the commissioners from those counties. I mean, they didn't tell me no, but they didn't tell me yes. I mean, of course, it was just one individual I was talking to, but, I mean, it is a start, and I think we do need to pursue that avenue, and sooner than later,
If that,
sounds like.
let me tell you what happened in before 2013 when we bid last time. We actually did that. We went and met and talked. But one thing that happened when we got our bids, I mean, Osceola at that time, I'm going on memory, but I'm thinking the number at the time was about $35 a ton. We got a bid at $17 a ton, so we didn't go to Osceola. Columbia had no interest. I remember we went over there and met with them. They had zero interest. And I don't remember talking to New River at that time. Now, after these bids the bid came in back several months back, is when I contacted those three again and spoke to them. But I really think we have to go sit down face to face with them and have a conversation in one of their board meetings.
My other comment I was gonna make earlier is, I mean, he mentioned it, and I think this board recognizes it. I mean, if we choose to go down this route, I mean, this is a generational decision that has been delayed. I'm not gonna point fingers, because by placing blame, you get nowhere, but this decision right here has been delayed for probably generations.
Yeah.
And the hole has gotten so daggum deep. I mean, we got 7 letters today from upset people, and the number's gotten so big that it has us looking at the top of the hole now, saying maybe we need to do something now. And these millions and millions of dollars, is it going to benefit this board in the next 5 years? Probably not.
No, you're gonna.
Yeah, it's going to benefit our kids, and when they start owning property and paying taxes, I mean, that's when you're going to start getting in the black and out of the red. But I mean, I'm not saying this is where we need to go, but I do think that it's probably worth some money, doing some hard research on really determining what the true costs are, short-term and long-term. Short-term meaning construction, dirt, availability, long-term meaning, like he talked about, continuing operating costs. I mean, I don't know, but I'm with you, Mr. Chairman. Every 5 years doing this again, I mean, that's what we've done historically, apparently, and you see where we're at.
Go up.
You see where we're at.
I just, there's no good answer, and the worst, I mean, we'll have a lot of discussion next Tuesday, but the worst problem is if we take this on, then we're taking this on at the same time having to pay to get rid of our garbage till we get one built. What's the time frame on getting one built if you started today?
3 years.
And Mr. Chairman, a 10-acre sale is 10 acres, but what is the real land, how much do you need to run a 10-acre sale?
So if I was only doing that one, and I wouldn't ever build just a 10 acre, I'd want a master plan.
That's right.
10 after that and after that. But let's say it was 10 acres, you're gonna need about 15, 16, because you got setback distances from your property boundary, you got stormwater swales, you got a stormwater pond, egressing, all that. So you
Okay.
have about
So almost double it then? Yep,
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha.
somewhere in that range.
I got you.
But another part of this that you're not thinking about long-term is this freight is not gonna get cheaper.
Cheaper, yeah.
That's
It's gonna keep going up every year, every year, every year. At some point, you're gonna overtake the beating on this.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah, I mean, it's something you gotta do for the,
Now, I
For
don't
the
think
next-
we can do it without host counties, just because of the fact you gotta put so much garbage in that thing to make it where it'll work. So I don't know I think we need to do something with the public here to see if they are entertaining host county garbage before you even start.
Yeah, on Tuesday, maybe pose that question on Tuesday.
Because that, it is a lot when you start hosting other counties and you start taking on other,
how long would this study take for the 20-year plan? Just guesstimate.
It'd probably take me 6, 8 weeks, really, to,
The difficulty is going to be trying to compare it back to the cost of another landfill, what they would charge in the future and what your transportation costs would be in the future as well.
right, my cost would be sort of a standalone, if you wanted to do this option, here it is. It wouldn't, like Randy said, I wouldn't really be able to compare it to unknown cost of other entities in the future. But you could at least extrapolate out over 20 years your capital cost, your operational cost, and your cost per ton graph, as you get more tonnage in that, or cost per airspace. How about that?
What happens is that two things actually over time. Yes, you think of your children and your grandchildren, what are they going to pay? The benefit's going to be to them. But despite that, as the population grows in the county, and it will, Florida's a destination location for everyone right now. And you get a big population spike, then you start drawing down your per ton cost of operations, because you got more volume going in that you've created with an additional population. So it isn't just the next generations, it's other people that are going to be moving in here, and they will. But one thing that I wanted to mention, and John, I'm sure you've recognized this over the years, back in the 90s, you had a lot of companies going out and starting these privately owned landfills. And in the mid-90s, the large operators, nationwide operators, started trying to buy them all up. And they bought a pile of them up because they were trying to create a monopoly. And this happens over time. You'll see they'll buy them all up, and then somebody will go out and they'll start some more landfills over time. And then another 15 years goes by, and then they're trying to buy all those up as well. So it's just a roller coaster over time, and you just have to figure out where you fit into that. But if your population is going to grow, and I think ours will over time, I think the longer-term benefit is there for us to have a landfill. Do I want to see us in that business right now? Not too crazy about that. But when you weigh that against your other options and the uncertainty of going someplace else, sometimes it becomes attractive.
Yeah, I'm gonna stay the course on, I'm in for more information. I mean, y'all can, gentlemen, if you want to wait to request that after next Tuesday's meeting with further discussion with the public, I'm fine, but, I mean, I'm not looking at it for me. I know this is gonna be tough. It's gonna be tough to pay for the county. It's gonna be tough on the citizens, but the one thing about doing it, when you go out there in 3 years and you're ready to dump some garbage, at that point in time, you can see the light at the end of the tunnel. Right now, you can't see anything.
And in a dark closet right now.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Locklear.
Yes, sir.
We've got that existing landfill sitting there, and we got one unlined cell
That's correct.
that's, doesn't have really any garbage in it, it's flat.
Very little, yep.
Can we dig that out and use that cell?
Absolutely. It's something I briefly mentioned to Mr. Harris, but
About that.
consider this, and there are 3 counties that I'm familiar with that are either have or are doing that. Putnam County, Bay County, and Escambia County have done that. What happens is, and I'll be brief as I can, it's decomposed. You go, you dig it out, you screen it, and that's under the screen material can be used as daily cover. So there's me a cost savings in dirt. Generally, a rule of thumb that I've seen in these 3 counties is I can take recycling out and a lot of metal, because back in the day, you just threw everything in there. So there's a lot of metals in there. You're recovering about 70% of the airspace. About 30% of what's in the ground has to go back into a lined landfill. What you don't have is a lined landfill. So it is operationally, you would have to, like, let's say right now you want to go start doing that. It takes a while to dig that up, and you wouldn't dig it all up at once. You dig it up in sections. But that 30% that comes out of the ground that I can't either use as daily cover or recycle, I'm going to have to take to my transfer station and pay to haul and pay Waste Management.
Wow.
But if you, in the future, let's say 10 years from now, you had your own Class 1 landfill right there, active, you could go and dig that out and with your own staff and just slowly start recovering that you do a couple things. One, you get, airspace. You get rid of environmental liability because of no bottom liner. Now, the groundwater out there is getting a lot better over time. It's not that bad now. It was 10 years ago, but you get rid of environmental liability, and you get cover material for free. So there are benefits. But I would say to you, it's not economically feasible if you don't have a landfill to put that,
I
what
got
you
you.
can't, right into.
So at some point, it's beneficial.
At some point, yeah. I mean, that would be just a matter of math. So when I start, let's say I start building cells and building cells, maybe it's towards the end of the life of that new, site, right? Because it's cheaper to not have to dig something up and line it than, I just dig a hole and put liner down. It's quick and easy. So until I get probably towards the end of my footprint of my new area, that's when I'd go dig that up, because it's not in your economic benefit to do it from, day one. Doesn't make any sense. But it is viable.
How many acres is it, do you know? The
It's
unlined.
about 20-something, 24 acres.
I don't remember now.
I can look it up for you. I don't know off the top of my head, sir.
But you would add that much life to your landfill.
Yeah, yeah,
I mean,
absolutely.
that takes that on out
That's
a lot further.
pretty big space, yeah. Yes, sir.
It's labor intensive.
It's labor intensive.
Oh, I
It's
get
slow.
that,
Yeah, it's a
but-
slow process.
But you're digging up that garbage, and you're gonna recover some costs just what recycling comes out of it, and that's probably gonna get better and better over the years. And,
Ballpark, and don't quote me on this, because there was a study Putnam County put out, their costs associated with it, and I think it was about an extra $9 per cubic yard to construct than just a green space.
so it actually costs more to construct it, even though
It
you
costs
already.
more in construction, but that didn't factor in savings of dirt and all that.
Right.
Just in pure labor and equipment and all that, because you're doing two things now. You're digging it up and screening it, and you're building a landfill. So, it costs more. But,
Over time, though, that might be a real valuable space.
sure, yeah, yep.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
now how deep is that? Would you go?
The closed landfill out there, I think it's only on the order of about 15 feet below grade, something like that.
So you gotta go down 15 feet in order to get old garbage
Well,
out.
there's part of it's above grade too.
Yeah, there's a bit of it's above grade. It's pretty flat. I think it's maybe, 15, 20 feet high above grade and about 15 below, something like that.
But then I think you said solid waste, well, not solid waste, but waste management will have to come and get that.
Well, the part that I dig up that I can't either reuse as daily cover or send to a recycling facility, I got to put back in a lined Class 1 landfill. Since you don't have one right now, the only option you'd have is to put it on the transfer station floor and haul it away.
But once you built you a landfill, then you can dig it up. and
You can put it
in
right
your
back in.
landfill.
Right. That's what those three counties that I mentioned. Well, Bay County actually has a waste incinerator, so they burn it, but same thing.
We're not,
Is there-
we're just talking about, gonna build a new cell and put garbage in there until we get to the life of that landfill, then we dig it up.
Right,
and
right.
use
Towards
that
the end.
20 whatever acres is there.
There's not, you gentlemen know this better than myself, but I mean, I understand our space is limited out there as to what we got available. We don't have enough land that, on that site that's next to this piece where it's dumped right now.
Because you need at least two 10-acre cells to make it viable, I would think.
Plus the additional stormwater capacity for that
Extra
impervious
land we
area,
talked
things
about.
like that. Yeah. So now instead of 20, maybe I need 30, plus setback distances and all that. So,
I was just trying to say, if we was able to have land to where we could be next to that one, so we started dumping, we
Right.
started cleaning this one out, putting it in here.
I mean, you want to be the closer you are, the better, but I don't, offhand, just thinking off the top of my head of your site, I don't think you have the room right now on that particular parcel to do that.
I don't think you do either.
Even if you move the animal control out of there?
Well, I'm just looking at everything. I was trying
Something
to,
I can evaluate pretty easily.
I was trying to think that if we was able to put it right next to it, that we start dumping, we start screening. Obviously, this one's gonna get built up, but by the time this one gets built up, this one's empty, you bring it up, and then you still got the V you could come back and do if you was.
Yeah.
So you
I
would-
can look at that.
Sure.
Mr. Chairman, a quick question. Do you have any idea, we talking about life expectancy, the full capacity of these cells? Where is New River and Osceola? I mean, those have been open for some time now. They've got to be getting,
So Osceola master plan, I'm a little more familiar. New River's building cell 9 as we speak. I think they're master planned out to cell 12. So I think they've got another, don't quote me, 15 years of life
okay.
already master planned.
Yeah.
Whether or not they have more land beyond that, I'm not sure. Osceola landfill, we're about to start building cell 4 of 8 cells. And if they don't bring any more customers or any more partners, they've got space for another 85 years.
Wow.
Because of geometry. So it's one big rectangle. We built this piece, almost like blocks. Now, we're putting them all together, and then when we get them all floored out, go back up on top, and on top, and on top. So it'd be a gigantic pyramid, one big old pyramid. So yeah, they got about 85 at the current growth rates of their member counties and things like that.
Does having an existing landfill make it easier to permit for a new one there?
If you're able to, you saying if you're able to have land?
Well, either adjacent to, even if you purchase land adjacent to it.
Probably a little bit, but not much. In the sense that, zoning and all of that. From the DEP's perspective, no, it doesn't matter.
Don't matter.
Doesn't matter.
There's no merit with DEP in reclaiming the
That
old
part,
one?
yes. If you were to dig up the old landfill, they love that. Now, is there any tangible, defined, hey, wow, we're going to give you a stamp, green stamp, to do that? No. But in my experience, they're gung-ho to make sure you get the permit, you know what I mean? So
if you acquire a new piece of land, you would do this master plan you're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
You would permit that whole thing at one time.
you would so here's how it works. You would submit a master plan for the whole site, which would include all the landfill cells, infrastructure, and an ERP, because that's what I got to get a permit for the entire site, is the stormwater permit, basically, for the whole site. You would not get a construction permit for the entire build-out, because the construction permits only have a certain life. They only last a certain number of years. So generally speaking, you submit as part of your preliminary initial 10-acre cell construction, a master plan for the whole thing. So that DEP kind of knows, okay, when they were done with cell 1, they're going to be coming back for cell 2 and cell 3. They have an idea of where it's going to go. And so it makes the subsequent permitting easier. And it sort of grandfathers you in that this is where I'm using this land for landfill,
Did you have another question?
No,
A question I had is, you're pretty familiar with the layout of the landfill, obviously. We was talking about trying to do an expansion, or if we're able to possibly buy land that's adjacent to it. Some of our thoughts was, and I want to get your thought, and if it will work, and if it makes sense, or if you just have to start over, that we have the infrastructure going in there, we have a scale house that's there, all that stuff's built. I mean,
So it's sort of, I know where you're going with this, and it was something we talked about, and it sort of depends on exactly where your filling would occur, if it makes sense, and your trucks have the ability to go to the scale and get back around easily to, if they got to make a big U-turn, so there's some fundamental operational considerations. That's kind of a tight area where that scale is, and you get to the leachate tank, it's kind of tight. You can also move it. You can move the scales in the scale house. I've done that before too. So there's a cost, obviously. But so that was kind of what I was referring to earlier in terms of evaluating all your infrastructure.
No, it was.
Where's where is the online sale? Where's that out there? Is it?
it's one you drive by going to the scale house on the
the
right.
first one on the
The
right?
first one on your right.
Yeah.
Better buy the scale.
Okay.
Then the newer, still closed, is the line further on.
That's the big mountain back there.
Right.
Transfer station. Looks
So
like
we
they're-
got a 80-acre parcel already owned with nothing on it, due west. And there is another additional 120 acres due west of that that is vacant, not ours. We got an 80-acre site. I mean, yeah, it's got some, I'm a sheriff, it's got some of your structures on it, but we got an 80-acre site adjoining the unlined one. I mean, that puts us right beside, if we go there, we go right beside the unlined one that's, we're having to monitor and have been forever. We go right beside it. Now, I don't know what the cost of replacing the structures are, and we got to relocate all that if we even think about going right there.
Is that land we own or no?
Yeah, we own the 80 acres that the animal control structures and facility is on.
That was my question as to, would it be enough to?
With that 80-acre site that adjoins that unlined cell, how many, you said on a
About
10-acre
15
cell, you need about
acres.
20, so you're only going to get,
So assuming there's no wetlands, I don't know the site, you know, if there's no wetlands, because that limits what I can do. There's a 200-foot setback from the property boundary. I need acreage for ponds and all that jazz. I'm gonna say if you got 80 acres, you're probably gonna get about 50 to 55 usable acres, maybe 60 if you really are lucky.
so you might get 5 or 6 cells out of that.
Probably 5.
Probably 5 would be my conservative guess, yeah.
But you're
But you're gonna gain a 20-acre cell
You're gonna
next
get
to
that
it.
back.
Gain the 20 back, and that's just 5 cells on the bottom footprint.
Yeah,
You go up.
Not counting your fill in, yeah. That's significant.
I just,
That'll last a long time.
That is, sure will.
Well, that's something I can do relatively easily, is do a very quick master plan. If you give me the property that you're talking about, and tell me, and I'll do all the setback, I'll just basically go into CAD and say, all right, well, I gotta have these setbacks, I need this much space for a pond, and blah, blah, blah. And then I'll map out all the cells and how high I can go, and I can get you volume for the build out of the whole site. It's not that challenging to do.
That takes that $2 million number, land acquisition, straight out of it.
Y'all need, excuse me, Mr. Chairman, that particular piece of property, there were some geological problems with it. You remember back in the 80s, you know about that?
I'm not familiar with the parcel to the west, I'm not.
Okay.
I was in high school. Sorry.
Well, there were some geological problems, and that's why we went that way. So before we get too far on that, it may be, get out there and do some drilling on it.
Or if we can even find the documents that, if they did some studies back then, if it's findable.
It could have fixed itself, you don't know.
But that's an excellent point, and that's what I was referring to earlier. Geology is geology.
And it doesn't matter where you go right there in that particular area.
Yeah.
I think you have the same issue
How about this
anywhere
part
you
of
go.
Florida?
I mean, welcome to Suwannee
There you
County.
go.
Sinkholes everywhere.
How much is it gonna cost to fix it? That's the
So
problem.
that's the key, is how big is it, how expansive is it? Can I build around it and avoid it? Can I grout it? Can I design, can I engineer around it with like a reinforced fabric underneath my liner to, there's a lot of different ways to do it, but it's all about what's the cost. Depends on the geology.
Does the state dictate how you fix that?
It's up to the design engineer to give them a plan, and they have to approve it.
They have to
They don't
approve
tell us how to do it. We tell them, and they say nope, or yep, or, and we might go back and forth a number of times. So I've seen everything I just mentioned to you, I've seen done.
Yeah.
Paction grouting, go around it, reinforcement over it. So every one of those options I've seen done.
I'd like to follow up on that and understand it. I mean, a thing I was thinking about with this landfill is we have people there that have to be there to take care of that landfill. So
That's true.
If, I'm saying those people could be helping with the new stuff when you're not busy. But, I mean, the old ones always got to be taken care of. I mean, you always got to monitor and mow and
30 years.
leachate, all these things. I mean, it's a full-time job for a few people out there.
We're nearing the end of that monitoring period, right, Mr. Pravat?
Yes, sir.
For the old one, if I
Yeah.
could interrupt, and we tried in this last year to get it out, and Tallahassee said no because of some of the groundwater constituents. It's because the rule states that it's 30 years if the landfill has stabilized, and there are criteria in the rule that define what stability is, and one of them is perfectly clean groundwater, basically, and we don't have that yet.
So how many years are you thinking we're away from that? I mean, how many years are we away from the 30-year?
We're already right at the 30, aren't we?
We're a year, within, right at a year on
A
it.
year, yeah, yeah.
So
'Cause
it's
you could
not-
try to get it done early. You can try to close it before the 30-year if everything's stabilized. I've done that in Baker, I've done it in.
But even if you hit your 30, you still have to meet those other criteria. So you
It's
could
not
go
automatic.
35, you could go.
So at the end of the 30-year, your engineer has to submit a stabilization report to the department, looking at subsidence of the landfill, all the factors that would tell you if the landfill has stopped decomposing, basically. Is it, is it stopped sinking? Is there any depressions? Is it still generating gas? And does the groundwater have any issues in it? Those are all the things we look at. And we send that report in, and the department says yay or nay.
I don't have a green bar with me, but I think that's 1.4 million or so that we have in escrow.
I don't
I think it's,
remember. In
Roughly.
fact, it
I think it's
show
about
in your,
1.4, so I mean,
Yeah.
that. if we
But
can
you,
cross-
you open a new landfill, you just transfer the money.
Yeah, that's right, but that's
Yeah.
my thing, if we get lucky, a couple years from now, 3 years from now, we get freed up, well, then we just put that right over there, and it's not another incurred expense on the escrow line.
Well, that's what, a lot of things out there that, would be not having another occurred expense. And also, I mean, you gotta give some merit to, if we're able to build next to the existing landfill and clean it up and help the environment and reline it over time. I mean, all this is
Could be a win.
it's a big, long-term
State-
plan, but I mean, at least it would be laid out.
The state would love you if you dug that old one up.
They always do.
Yeah. I,
And I didn't, when you said it, Dirt, I'd never even thought about it. There's probably a slew of metal down there too.
There, you know how it was in the
Yeah.
70s and 80s, just everything went in there.
Yeah.
how are you seeing the landfills in today's world, like that you're affiliated with, as far as the recycling process going? I mean, I understand it's cost to do it versus dump it and push it and pack it, but I mean, I just wondered if any of them's taking more steps, or if the state's pushing it harder, or.
No, smaller counties aren't really doing a whole heck of a lot. Bigger counties like Alachua and Leon, are doing everything they can. One of the big issues that everybody's having is the commodities market for the materials. Nobody
Bottomed
wants to
out.
buy it.
Yeah.
So they've got bales and bales and bales of bottles and cans, and, well, the metals usually go pretty good. It's the cardboard that nobody wants.
Yeah.
So now I got, 100 bales of cardboard and nobody wants to buy it. I can't let it sit there forever by rule, so I gotta do something with it. What happens? I'm out to landfill it.
teenagers come get you.
Yeah. So the answer is and the DEP is not really pushing, they're promoting, but particularly with COVID and economics and all that, they're not hammering anybody on anything.
Gentlemen, y'all have any other questions, Mr. Lockwood?
What kind of costs are we looking at on a study on that particular site of what we just, the scenario we just talked about?
A geotechnical study, like going out there with the drill rig and GPR and all
The
that?
feasibility.
Oh, me just sort of evaluate, like doing
Yeah,
what I
Can
said?
it be done? How many usable acres you have? I've looked at the wetlands, I've determined this, and you can get five.
It's about
steps.
$20,000 ballpark. Don't hold me to it. But I'll put together a proposal with a detailed task list and cost, and y'all can chew on it and tell me no, or get somebody else to do it, or whatever you want to do, but
Is that something we have to put out to bid, Mr. Harris, by statute, or is that something we can just tell him to go do it?
No,
I'm under a continuing
he's our
service
consultant,
contract. Yeah, you
under
can
contract now.
tell me to do whatever you want, under $2 million.
Go build me a landfill under $2 million.
Well, can we go out there and just look at it
His
first
contract for
Sure.
2 million.
and say, yeah, I would pursue this, or no, I wouldn't,
The
before
only
we
thing I'd
spend the
really
20
be able,
grand?
the only thing I'd really be able to tell you just by stepping out there and look is wetlands, neighbors, your
Setback.
setbacks, issues like that. I might be able to look at if it's a hummocky surface, in other words, it's undulating surface, I might be able to tell you, well, that's a pretty active karst. Stay away from that. But that's about all I'll be able to tell you just from looking at it.
Well, I mean, I just want you to look at it first.
Sure.
And just
I'm
from
happy.
what you can see.
Yeah,
Say if it's.
Say if it's
pursuing or
worth
not.
pursuing or not.
sure, I can do that.
Commissioners, I think there's, I'm going to guess, 5 to 7 acres on the south end. Part of it, they buried asbestos in there years ago. In fact, we have signs there. County had decided they were, this is before I got here.
But a state like that too.
So there are signs down there that say, do not dig here. And then that's
But
near,
that's separate than that cell, though.
that's near where we burn. That's correct. It isn't a part of that cell.
Right, it's-
But it's on the very south end. It would be the southwest corner of the property, and then if you've been out there, there's an area that's already dug out. It looks like they were digging a retention pond. They probably were using it for daily cover. And that's all in the vicinity of where we burn, if you're familiar with where we burn out there. Anyway, I'm just mentioning that's
Yeah.
what's on the south end down there. So that's probably 7 acres that would not work.
Well, that's just why I want him to go look.
Yeah. I'm happy to go do a site visit, look at just the GIS maps of wetlands, and
When would you have the opportunity to do that, you think? Just guess.
I can go next week.
Could you go Monday?
That's
Or Tuesday?
holiday.
And come to our meeting.
I would just like for you to tell us if it's a possibility or not with that piece of property, is what I'm saying, because
M-
we're going to have a long discussion on Tuesday evening, and if we had a little bit of information to know if it was good or bad on that, it would probably help us.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
while he goes out there, should we ask Mr. Locklear to, if he's going to look at that site, if it starts kind of teetering, look at the aerials, or, I mean, we don't own the parcels around it, so to speak, so I don't expect you to go walk on those, but can you look at the aerials and maybe evaluate, say, hey, listen, guys, this AD you own will work, this is where I'd go, or, you'd be better off going this other direction because of X, Y, Z, and you're really gonna be wasting a lot of money and a lot of time going west. Could you tell us that too while you're there?
I can do that. Monday's a holiday, so I'm clear. So I'll do you a favor and go out there on a holiday for you.
That's
I'll
no
have it.
charge, right?
No charge.
I want to get that for the record.
Logan, you got?
We have any other questions at this time?
No, that's
Mr. Locklear,
great, thank you.
Man,
Sure, you're welcome.
I've learned more in this hour than I've
More than you
learned
probably-
in 3 years, I believe. I appreciate the insight. And
Thank you.
Happy to help.
Thank you.
And
Thank you very
Mr.
much.
Harris has my number if anybody ever wants to call me, or I can talk about garbage all day long. So
Appreciate you.
my family would be appreciative of it. I'll talk to them about it.
That's
Thank
right.
you so much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Mr. Harris, did you have anything additional?
No, sir.
At this time, I will open the floor to public comment if I have anyone wishing to speak on anything. It doesn't matter. Yes, ma'am, just please come to the microphone. Welcome, and just please state your name and address for the record.
My name is Alita DeMarco. I believe you all got an email and a letter from me.
Yes, ma'am.
My address is 7050 213th Road, Live Oak. And I'd like to commend you all for having this meeting tonight. Although the reason it's very sparse here is because nobody knew about it. I only found out because I was checking for next week, and I happened to see this. I also was able to see your wonderful meeting on the 26th, where you actually started this discussion. So to see you finishing or going forward with it tonight is also very commendable. This should have been done a long time ago. And as I said in my letter, and I know you've heard from all of us, and there's a lot more, to pull this on us at this point, when you're sending out our tax bills, I'm on a fixed income now. Where am I going to find that money without putting my house in jeopardy? That isn't right, and it's not just me. You're right. We have 2,000 acres in an equestrian center coming in north of Ocala. I am a horseman. There are going to be a lot of horse farms moving in, just like I did. I came from South Florida. I was extremely involved in rebuilding properties all up and down South Dade County and South Palm Beach County. I was also involved in all of the incinerator and the recycling plants and the landfills and all the arguments that went on. So I understand, whoops, I'm sorry, I'm Italian. I understand what you're going through. But at this late point, for the majority of the people, if we had known, I could have saved up before. You know, if you had been taxing us slowly over the last few years, it would have been much more viable for many of us. we're in the middle of this stupid pandemic thing. People have lost their jobs. There aren't a lot of jobs in the county anyway because we are agricultural. It's just not right. Now, I know you're trying to rectify it. And I have heard from some of you that, yes, you realize that we're angry, and this is long-term. There are grants. I know you get grants for everything else. For the state and for the federal, for small counties under 100,000 residents, for exactly what you're looking for. You already have a landfill. You need more money to start a new one, startup program for hauling, for getting equipment, and to pay the costs for an engineer and for legal. There are grants. They are there. Now, I know you get grants for other things. Why hasn't this been done? Why haven't you gotten grants? You could have had 7 years of grants to offset what we're now looking at. It could have helped you to prepare the landfill like you're now talking about, fortunately. It just is mind-boggling to me. You're intelligent men. You live in an agricultural community. The springs and the water are important. I'm from South Florida. I moved here to get out of the nonsense down there. What you're wanting to charge me for my tiny property is more than what I paid for my waste in Boca Raton. It's just mind-boggling to me. In an agricultural county where I carry my garbage over there, they picked up my garbage twice a week. Twice a month, they came and took any yard waste. And if I cut down an oak tree, which I did by myself, they came and picked it up the next day because I made arrangements. And I didn't pay what you're asking me to pay for my little tiny property here. It was so unnerving to me to get that letter from you. And I know that you got in the calls, so I'm not the only one. So thank you for at least taking the time to do this. And I'm going to be one that's going to say, if your presentation Tuesday night covers all of this and explains it to people, I'm not going to say it's going to be easy to swallow. But there has to be some other alternative to us hitting this wall again.
Yeah.
And as you're saying, every 5 years, this company, and I'm going to say something else, and perhaps you will know about it, Mr. Pravat. It does not make sense to me that we were forced to give our business to a company that was buying out all the competitors. I thought there were laws against that. And I'm going to go look it up because there are so many people doing research online right now. And all I have to do is put it out on the internet and somebody will research it. To be held captive to a company like that and have your people in a low-income area living on minimal incomes, even as farmers, and for you all to be sitting here getting salaries off of our taxes and us to be hit with this is really aggravating. That's nothing personal. I don't know any of you personally except Mr. Pravat. And so it's not intended as a jab at you individually. It's cumulative that you would let this go this long. And those of you that have known about this for more than the last year, shame on you. Shame on you. And to be saying, yes, we'll look at this, we'll look at that, and have this good engineer in here coming and giving great information is wonderful. Why wasn't this done months and months ago where the public would know what was going on?
Ma'am, I would respond to you in defense of this board that none of us, we had a fair rate to dump our garbage. We didn't know about this until a couple of months ago. I mean,
Truly found out the same thing.
they got.
We had an
We got a-
incredible rate. We had a rate that was half of what anyone anywhere was charging.
But nobody
And we had had it for years. For years, we'd had an excellent rate. I mean, no one could touch it. So we got the new rate just months back, and we had no idea that that was going to happen.
We would have been fine if it would have stayed at that rate. We would have, I mean, it's nothing that we knew about for years and didn't tell the public about. I mean,
Or had
we
we
just got,
known.
we had to, redo our bid, renew our contract every so many years, and it happened to be this year. And when it bid and it come back at a number that was astronomical. And the problem that we're up against is the county is a business, just like any homeowner has a business, and we have to figure out how to pay the bills. And trust me, every one of us got that same piece of paper, and by no choice of ours did we want to send it to anybody. I mean, I think you've seen discussion that we've had tonight, and honestly, I wish more people would have been here tonight to hear this conversation, but we in no way knew we was going to have this good a conversation tonight. We knew we was getting the information that we had requested, we'd asked Mr. Harris to get us. We thought we was getting some information on that we would have for next Tuesday to discuss more. We didn't know we was going to get into a conversation where we gained this much knowledge tonight. I would say that 100%. I just didn't. I didn't come here tonight expecting to gain that kind of knowledge
Well,
from somebody to speak with us, so.
We had a meeting on the 26th in the morning. I stumbled on that today when I was looking to verify that Tuesday night was still there. Then I found that video and I watched it, and that's what made me think, okay, you guys are on it. But that conversation, again, this is not individual, it's just the concept. You were asking questions you should have known about. Even paying this other company, because we have a landfill, because every 5 years or whatever you're saying, we're being hit with this fee again. This county is under 100,000 people. You can get government grants to help. Now, if you have grants for everything else and you have grant writers, why?
I mean,
That's
Mr.
all.
Chairman, if I can respond, I mean, you're right, and I have asked about those grants, but they don't come overnight. I mean, honestly, we don't ask for them and get them. They take years to develop.
Oh, I know.
I would think every one of us would have to go to Tallahassee, to our state representative, to our senators, and lobby that on Suwannee County's behalf. I mean, we've done this. I know I've been involved in some of these chasing grants, and it's time consuming. And again, we didn't know any of this. Had we known this 3 years ago, we'd have been chasing those grants. But we found out in May of this year of this increase, and we've been chasing our tail ever since, to put it to you that way. I mean,
I'm going to
it's
suggest
scary.
again, you can get money, you can start with an incinerator. People, I think you had a meeting on this once, and somebody raised heck about putting an incinerator in.
That was medical.
Okay.
Right.
If people understand, I mean, we went through this, like I said, in Dade County and in Palm
Yes,
Beach. I went to every meeting, I've seen it, heard it. So it's just the way that it was done 2 months before our taxes are due, and nobody in this COVID thing, where do half of the people come up with the money, especially people on fixed incomes?
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
Ms. DeMarco, right? The letter states the 300. I think Tuesday night, I mean, we're going to look at, everything that we possibly can to maybe get that lower. I don't know what that number is going to be. I don't know. I'm not telling you that it's going to get lower, but I think that whole conversation, that 300 is not set in stone. It won't be set in stone until, I don't remember the date.
19th.
The 19th or so, but
Yeah.
on Tuesday, I mean,
You're still at November.
I
We still have
understand.
to pay.
I understand,
or our
but
houses are in jeopardy.
But in defense of this board, I don't think that anyone knew. I mean, I believe, and I don't want to, I'm guessing here, but Waste Management just recently bought out the company that was to the north, and no one knew, no one had any, Waste Management didn't know they were going to be the only person to bid. So, I mean, we got dealt a raw hand, and now you see this board here looking to make multi-million generational decisions to try to get us out of that boat. But, I mean, we can't do it overnight.
A couple months ago, you knew. We didn't know. None of us knew. Your meetings, you're held at times when people can't get here or don't know about it. And without having a newspaper, if I had not just happened to look on the website to verify next week, I would not have seen on the 26th, the meeting that you had where you started your discussion. I would not have known about tonight. You're probably happy, wishing I hadn't. And to verify, to get people to come, because I see that Mr. Harris is going to give us a presentation, and now from having this material, and if you will put it on site, I'll put it on the gossip column and everywhere I can. I've been putting it out for people to come.
I would really encourage you, if you'll do that, that'll be great, because everybody can see the information that we're looking at. But I would also encourage you, while you're looking at the videos on YouTube, I mean, we had a budget workshop, or a workshop, to solely discuss fire and garbage over at City Hall. And we sat here for 5 hours, dreading having to go up $10. I mean, that meeting's 5 hours long on fire and garbage. 5 hours we sat here.
4 hours
Here's-
was garbage.
Here's another thing.
Yeah.
I
I
mean,
live beyond the limits for my insurance. I'm already paying extra to cover my property because there is not a fire truck that can get to my house and save my house. My neighbor right next door, 300 feet away, burned down the back of his house 2 Christmas Eves ago. And he stood there with a water hose and saved his house. The whole back of it went, but he saved it with a water hose before we got a fire truck there. And it's like, okay, we live in the country. I knew that when I came here. I lived so far in the country in Georgia, forget fire. There was nothing. I hand bucketed out of the creek or that was it. So I moved here knowing what country is. I'm not a city fight that didn't know. But if you're going to talk about the future, you need to also look at your incinerators. You need to look at your recycling. Look at getting the other smaller counties to join. They will once they understand what this county is going through. And I believe you already said you talked to somebody about that.
Yes, ma'am.
But it's like, none of us can really look at this and say, okay, I'm going to be here 20, 30 years, but your kids will. And in the interim, we are going to have a lot more people. Because I'm in the horse industry, I know we got horse farms, they're already here, and they're coming. And we may be bringing more horses with us, but with us, we also bring a lot of staff. And you got a 2,000-acre facility coming in this side of Ocala. People are still moving out of South Dade with our horses because we're being pushed out. And yes, we want to keep this pristine. We love the springs. We love the rivers. We love the open air. I left South Florida, and I won't go back up the East Coast because we're being pushed out. I want the agriculture. But at the same time, yes, we're going to have more people coming. Start now to get ready for it and be able to offset it by getting these other counties, because like you said, all of a sudden they're going to get hit like we are. In the meantime, if those of us that are interested, and you're going to have a big showing on, and I don't know where you're going to have it yet, we're all wondering, are you going to hit us again? You're saying you're going to raise it 300 now, and then you're going to go up to 400 and something? Where do we find that money? You know, and I understand you're saying, oh, well, there's no option. There has to be an option. There has to be. Because you're putting our homes in
No,
danger.
I understand what you're saying. There's options. It's just none of them we like. The people, I mean, the problems is what they cost the people. We could continue going down this road and paying this company that's charging us this astronomical rate, but we want to find something else. I truly respect you coming. I appreciate you. I feel like that you probably gained some knowledge tonight by being here as we did and listening. And I 100% understand how upset and angry you are, but I will commend you for being respectful and getting your point across and letting us hear it. I have no problem with that. And this next Tuesday, I have no problem. Anybody that wants to speak, let's have a discussion and figure out what we can do. We're all in this together. We're not here against you. I mean, we're all one, and we understand the situation we got here, and we understand we're responsible for it, and we understand we have to make decisions that's not going to make everyone happy. But we want to hear from you, but we want it to be in a respectful manner, and we want to work together and try to get a solution that everyone can not be happy with, but hopefully we can all live with it.
Well, again, go look at the incinerator, Palm Beach incinerator. Now, it's way too big for here. But you can start small and build up. You can get the government money. They will give you the money. I worked on block grants and county grant. I did all of that. So I know that if you have good grant writers, you can even hire them online who have this background, who know where to go, how to get them written, and can get them. And if you're getting grants for other things, this is a specialty.
And I appreciate your ideas, and trust me, I've been making notes with things you say, as I do with many folks that come here. And that's a great note to put down, to start building on. And, you know, I mean, you've said many times about, you know, well, you should have been doing it before. Well, at the end of the day, we can't look in the rearview mirror. There's no use. We got to go forward, and we got to acknowledge we made mistakes. Could I do better? Absolutely. Did I make mistakes? Sure I did, because I didn't go out and see that I had a problem, you know, because we was paying a fair rate to dump our garbage. So I thought we was fine. Well, obviously, we're not fine, because we're not planning for the future. But now we understand we have to plan for the future, and we have to figure out how to get there. But I appreciate your comments, and I look forward to seeing you again on
And
Tuesday.
I commend you for starting on the 26th and for following up, and I thank the engineer here for coming and giving the information.
Yes, ma'am.
And if you will put this online, I will be directing everybody I can think of, because I go across 7, 8 platforms online, not just Facebook and stuff like that.
Miss Mandy will get it. You get it online for us in the morning?
And that way I can tell people to go look, and maybe by Tuesday night, if we all read this, we'll have a little bit more understanding. Because again, you put our homes in jeopardy, and that, when you touch on our homes and our families on short notice, there's no time for us to find the funds. And,
Yes, ma'am.
you know, y'all are sitting here with incomes. Some of us don't have them. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
Mr. Chairman, before we move on here, and Mr. Locklear's here, do you know anything about incinerators and garbage?
Yes, sir, I have some experience. Typically, what's called a mass burn waste energy facility, an incinerator for short, needs about a 3,000 ton per day input to be economically viable. The other aspect to the economic, because you have to bond out a $15, $20 million facility to build it, and that's usually over a 30-year bond period. So you've got to contractually have about 3,000 tons per day of waste contractually to come to you. The second component to that is you've got to have somebody to wheel that energy to that's going to buy it, you know, of the electricity that you're generating. If you don't, it won't work. So that's a even more complex economic. I'm not saying that they're not viable, but there's a reason why they're only in Palm Beach and Hillsborough County.
Population.
It's population density, people to use the electricity, and people to generate the waste at a high volume density. Secondly, you didn't ask, but if I can, there are solid waste grants available to small counties. Typically, the one that I'm familiar with is related to recycling programs, and I think it's capped at $100,000 per year. I do know over the last 4 or 5 years, there's been they haven't been funded, so the legislature hasn't put funding into those, which is not uncommon. Now that's starting to come, well, until COVID, that was starting to flip-flop back. So, for example, a lot of your parks grants, your, you know, things like that were unfunded for a couple of years there when the economy was down. And so same held true for the solid waste grants. But to my knowledge, and I'd be happy to eat crow if I'm wrong, I don't think there's any grants available for construction of a new landfill for anybody. I don't think the state, maybe there's an outside source I'm not familiar with, but the Department of Environmental Protection, to my knowledge, doesn't offer grants for construction. It's operation, and it's usually small county, and it's to incentivize recycling programs.
Yes, sir. Well, thank you. Any other questions, Mr. Locklear?
No, the only thing I would comment was, do we need him here Tuesday? And if we do, would his information to comment on some concerns that we may get be beneficial for him to be here Tuesday? And if he can be here Tuesday, then maybe.
He's going to be here. He's going to
Postpone.
be here Tuesday.
He will?
Yes.
Yeah.
Then,
Yes,
then,
please.
then,
Yeah.
can you come a little early and save your trip on Monday and do it on Tuesday? Try to kill 2 birds with 1 stone for you?
What time's the meeting on Tuesday?
It's 5 o'clock.
Oh, sure.
So enjoy your Labor Day and do it all on Tuesday, please, sir.
You just want me here for questions, not like a formal presentation?
I don't ask you to, yeah, just to be in case. none of
John,
us
we
know
may
the
talk back through some of the same things that we did this evening. because
Okay,
there are a lot of
that's fine.
No
people that-
presentation, but just
Yeah.
your knowledge.
Yeah, I'm happy to do it. Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
That's going to be quite a long meeting.
Yeah, you might want to bring up something to drink. Yeah.
Thank you.
We'll
And
go
a
to closing
football helmet and
comments. Mr. Pravat, you have anything?
No, sir.
Mr. Harris?
Just quickly, John mentioned 3,000 tons a day, and I recall back in probably 1998, I participated with some other people and talked to 4 different consultants involved in solid waste, and we were trying to learn as much about incineration as we could, and we spoke to these companies independent of one another, and every single one of them told us at that time, they didn't tell us 3,000 tons a day, they told us you need at least 1 million people to feed that thing and pay for it. That was what they told us back then, so apparently that hasn't changed much.
Thank you, Mr. Harris. Commissioner White?
I just want to roll back to the meeting next Tuesday. Are we still planning on coming here, recessing and going to the Coliseum?
Input, gentlemen?
I'm thinking just, if you see the crowd and we need to do it, we can adjourn. I think, Mr. Pratt, you said it was legal if we did. Now, did we move forward with getting any from Mr. Scott? Any, I don't see him here.
No, I told him to have speakers for outside here and have the other one set up too.
At the
Because we
Coliseum?
didn't, yeah, we didn't know.
Ma'am, just so you know, and I don't know if you've heard discussion, but based on the letter to the public, it had the address of this building on it for the meeting. We've tried to make arrangements to, if we have an overflow of people here, we're going to adjourn and we're going to go to the Coliseum. We're going to set up over, we're going to have a microphone system set up over there where we have more room. So if you want to share that with folks, just so they know. But we will, if we leave here, if we see enough people and we need to leave here, we will leave, the sheriff will have a deputy here to direct people if they come after we're gone, so they'll know.
Yeah, we're
And
gonna
give
come
them
here
enough-
and start the meeting, and if there's a whole bunch of people, then we're gonna move it, but if there's only 25, then we'll just stay here.
We discussed moving the meeting and not having it, but with it legally on the paper, we're bound to have it started here.
Start it here.
But we realize that we're going to limited space, and if we need more room, we'll make it move.
And that's, not just to add to that, that's just being mindful of anyone that wants to come but may be worried of COVID or anything of that nature.
It gives everybody a little bit more room, or a lot more room.
Yep.
Commissioner White, anything?
I'm good, thank you.
Commissioner Fleming?
Mr. Chairman, I just want to say this in light of Ms. DeMarco, what she said, some things that was brought out, and we have kicked the can down the road. I'm older than these gentlemen, I've been here longer than these gentlemen, and it was kicked down the road and it was just passed down, and to the defense of the board, they said we didn't find out until May. I learned so much tonight that I've been sitting on this board, and thanks to Mr. Lockley here, that bringing out all this information. It's bad when sometimes you don't have that understanding, you don't have the correct information. I think this would have happened. Mr. Hancock can verify. Time he's been out, he's been a commissioner more than I have, longer than I have, and I hate that side. I got a mother. She's 85 years old. She's on a fixed income, and I got aunts and a lot of family members, and it hurt. But at the same time, as the chairman said, we're trying to fix the situation, and I'm proud of these men. I know that prayer changes things. You know, God watches over every one of us, and I know that these gentlemen are trying to do the best, and I think I would put our staff up against anybody in the state of Florida. I think they work hard. I think they have this county at heart. We're gonna try to do the best that we can. I've been trying to be limited things that I say, but I feel people when we're going through these crises. We got COVID, we got the new variant, we got storms, we got a lot of stuff that's crowding these guys. And Commissioner Land, he got thrown for a loop the other day, but anyway, we're working in. But I appreciate you coming and with your expressions, and Mr. Locklear, all the information that you have put out there to us, and it helped me a lot, and I'm kind of dreading. I know we had this incinerator, Mr. Harris, going out there on 10 a few years back. That was a really hard time for me, by that incinerator by I-10. They're talking about putting out there, but and other incinerators that in the landfills and stuff like that. And this is a reminder what happened, but we got through it. I really do believe we'll get through it, commissioners. With the help of God, we'll survive. Mr. Chairman, I'm ending it with that.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Land,
No, sir, I'm good.
Commissioner Hale.
The only thing I would ask, and Commissioner Fleming mentioned it, prayer, believing in Christ, and I'm telling you folks, we need to do that. We lost another good one today, Mr. Brantley, the Chris family. And I don't know if y'all knew that, but we're losing too many fine folks around here right now. We really are. Young guy.
I didn't know that.
So, please,
Just unbelievable.
lift their families up, pray for them, pray for us and the things that we're having to deal with on this board, and trying to make it better for our community. So that's all I gotta say.
Thank you, Commissioner Hale. I just say the same thing to family of Chris Brantley. My heart breaks. It's a great family. Just unbelievable what COVID's done to our community and our nation. And we just got to stand strong, help each other get through it. I would say our meeting run long. I wanted to try to get done this evening, but just wanted to comment on that was having a Candlelight Vigil for the 13 soldiers that was lost in Afghanistan. It's actually downtown right now. It started at 7:45, but I just want to ask everyone to keep those folks that lost their lives and those families, and not just those families, all the ones before them that's fought for this country and our freedoms. It's so easy to get caught up in everyday life because we got it so good in this country. And we forget all those that's fought so hard to give us that opportunity. And I just don't want to forget those folks. All I need now is just a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Have a motion by Commissioner White, second by Commissioner Fleming. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.